follow us in the recording. First of all, good day, good evening, good morning, whatever, where you are, because I know we have a quite huge presence, Europe, US time zone. So I hope you will enjoy what we will be speaking about, because what we will be speaking about today is new Ansible, and you will see through the presentation and through the demos that it is changing a bit, sometimes quite a bit. So we'll take a look how these things and why things all they important. So to be precise, our agenda would be the following. We'll take a look in general what are the automation scenarios, because it might be that it is the basics, but as the best like football or basketball coaches say, you could start doing something cool if you are really great in the basics. So we need to recap where we are, what we understand when we speak about the automation, and then we'll take a look why the Ansible is so popular, where Ansible is helping in various these dimensions. Afterwards, we'll take a look on what is new in Ansible 2.10. So basically, if you're already like living with Ansible, working with Ansible for quite a while, you could understand this. Obviously, this is not new. I mean, they're constantly new versions coming, 2.5, 2.6, 2.7. I personally started working with Ansible since 2.1, so I've seen a lot of changes, but 2.10 is a really special one, and we will take a look why, what led to be the Ansible 2.10 a special one, and finally we'll take a look what is changing in really from the automation perspective, what you need to be aware, what you need to start looking into, and we'll show this obviously with a demo showing the legacy playbooks and how they are converted in the new one on the example of one of the vendors. And we will wrap up. So that's our agenda. Probably the first just thing to talk about us. So what we are doing, some of you already know us, somebody not don't know necessary. So we are a small company. We are doing two big things. We are doing the training service in the network automation field, which we already running for a year. We are running for private customers and for corporate ones. So as you could see, we already quite a few people who trained with us, Nokia, Cisco, so vendors, also the service providers such as Telecom Austria Group, Viasat, Telelink. We are quite happy that people are joining us, and we see that amount of the people joining our services are growing. So if you're interested in the automation, take a look on our website about our upcoming trainings. Or if you believe that some from your colleagues or friends would benefit, feel free to share, and we ask you please to share. Second piece, what we are doing is also we are doing a lot of job around of the network automation, such as development of the tool for our customers or integration of the tool for our customers, and not only from the automation perspective, but also from the traditional network is service provider networking, segment routing, traffic engineering, concept stuff, and the data center. So why it is important to start with this slide, because probably so it's like a sales pitch, could be the main piece is that we are living the automation. We are doing the automation daily. We are doing this automation in multiple different projects, and we are really have the passion for the automation, and we are willing to share with you so that you could also benefit from that. So looking into the automation scenarios now, let's start probably with the most basic scenarios, right? Because when the people start speaking about the automation, there could be different things, different meanings for different people. What is it, and what the context where we are start from the network automation perspective? The most simple automation ever, you need to collect some information. We wouldn't speak right now about the scale. Obviously, you could go to the device and collect all the information you need through the CLI or from all other perspective. If you have a big network, I mean, and big means like tens, hundreds, thousands of devices, you understand that the way how you collect information is pretty different if you like to quickly collect the information and analyze it. And this is where the automation obviously is handy one. Whatever the protocol exists to manage the network element, starting from the legacy SSH, and then through the all means of the programmable interfaces such as netconf, restconf or JNMI, we are collecting the information somehow, analyzing, and either analyzing and producing some reports directly, or put it somewhere where the OSS and BSS stack, so that the information could be consumed at a later point. So this is probably the most simplest scenario, and this is where a lot of people are start with automation. I could create some scripts, or I could write some tools that would collect information for me. And besides of collecting information for me, it would also like probably be beneficial for company I'm working for. So the second next step, okay, I could collect something, cool. What else I could do? Probably I need to change some parameters, multiple on the devices. Or I need to deploy some services just on a few of the devices, right? So we start like thinking and performing the same generally workflow, but just in the back direction. So we have somewhere the variables. It could be any OSS, BSS tool as such, so databases or network management system or your whatever SDN controller, doesn't matter. So something where you have some information. It could be even spreadsheet, so CSV, Excel, doesn't matter, where you could take information from, process this information how you need. I mean, process it in the way that you will get the configuration either in form of the CLI commands proper sequenced, or there's some structured data, netconf, restconf, or JNMI, and this information is pushed down to the network element. So these two are the most basic automation steps where all the people are doing. Obviously, Ansible are helping with both of them a lot, because there are tons of the models that could help you with these things. Let's take a look further, right? We know we could collect the information and store it somewhere, processed probably. We could also collect all the information from the databases or some external things, process and push and form of the configuration down to our network elements. What are the next things? So the next thing starts when we start looking into real life. Say we want to provision certain services in the new network, or in the existing network, that's more correctly to say. And the existing network, you might have some things already configured. Give you a few examples. Speaking about the data centers world, for instance. If you are trying to add a new customer to existing overlay VPN, so whatever it is, VXLAN, Genif, doesn't matter. So you need to have typically some sort of the service-related part, which is encapsulation, tunnel endpoint, parameters related to the service itself, such as row targets, row distinguishers for EVPN signaling, and all that stuff. And you have also the customer-facing port, effectively where your server or VM or container from the server will be attached later. When you do the provisioning in the real network, before you would probably push the configuration of the VNI, you need to check. Probably it is already configured there. So that's why you start adding a little bit more intelligence in their playbooks, or speaking about Ansible, already obviously playbooks, but in your logic, so that before pushing any sort of configuration down to the network element, you would analyze whether it is necessary to do that or not. And if some pieces of the configuration is already in the network element, such as VTAP or VNI overlay, speaking about the data center, you wouldn't touch it in order not to affect the existing service somehow. You would just focus on the configuring probably the port up to the customer. Same is applicable to the service providers network. Say you are provisioning then EVPN in the new flavors for a bit legacy services like VPLS or layer 3 VPNs. You would need to analyze what you already have configured. So whether you have VRF created, whether you have a MPLS tunnel, whatever we mean by the tunnel, like just segment routing, traffic engineering, or something legacy, existing up to your endpoint, and you don't need to touch this part, and you need to configure only like connected customers, say fixed customers or mobile base station, or you need to do the full provisioning. It's also worth to check if some configurations needs to be modified. For instance, you have some sort of the QoS policies, and you might take a look that some policy is there, but probably the content of the policy a bit is outdated. If it is outdated, you would need to push the new configuration of the QoS policy. However, if it is relevant, you don't need to touch this part. So we could go through a lot of the examples, but I believe you get the point. So once we start looking into real application of the real world, you probably would like to be more cautious about when you're doing these things. Just giving some examples, recently I've referred about that some changes were pushed in the network without validating what the changes were and what the existing stage of the network was. And as a reason, there's a simple thing, some interface has changed their type from being access to trunk or vice versa. And it obviously led to some issues with the connectivity. So, and this was done just because it was not checked what the existing state of their interfaces, and probably the playbooks could do these things for us. So there are multiple changes where it may sense to analyze the change and probably do only delta to push it rather than rewriting everything. And the next step is basically once we have already sort of the logic that could collect the information from databases, collect the information from the network, and then do some sort of data analysis, which should be implemented in the network, then we understand that logic is generally robust enough in order to be able to handle even more complex cases by analyzing what is going on in the network, analyzing it against what is supposed to be, what is information coming from the databases, and perform the changes. We can add the last piece, what is the whole automation world is speaking about, is closed loop automation. So closed loop automation is not just the thing as such. So it exists within the context of the normal automation, I mean, traditional one. Just the ability to create additional logic, like a second brain, which can give or collect information from the network, or probably also from short external systems which could supply the analytics with batch data or stream data, such as syslogs or streaming telemetry or SNMP or any other data that could come at a certain time period and could be meaningful in terms of if we analyze the coming data, we could trigger some activities in our automation logic, and this activity would either change the network configuration or will collect some information from the network and update it somewhere. So in essence, as you see, we start with the two basic things: either collect information from the network and analyze and push up, or push it down, taken from somewhere. So all other use cases, they are built to a degree, well, not to a degree, they're building relying on these two basic use cases, but obviously like fact-driven and event-driven, they are more looking into the analysis and doing additional pre-checks before anything in the network is done, right? So we could take a look in multiple other scenarios of the automation. For instance, we are speaking here predominantly about the network. However, the IT infrastructure as such is way broader, and we can have there in a single like chain of automated change also there are other components that we would like to touch, such as servers or applications or something else. So we haven't spoken about what exactly this automation engine could be, because automation engine from the perspective of the things could be anything that is capable of working on the different interfaces with the network elements, whatever interface is available, and also working on various interfaces with the external stack, with the OSS, BSS, where the information is steered from. So basic use cases, right? All of these use cases basically could be handled with Ansible. Everything probably besides the real-time analytics will park it for the moment, but from the engine that is able to manage the network and interact or interconnect the network with the OSS and BNSS stack. Ansible is perfectly doing this job, and Ansible is being progressing in this field quite a lot. So there were some researches done in the last year. I absolutely honest, I was not done this research, so this coming from the RightScale website. So from Flexera, they did their analysis, a questionnaire among users of various configuration tools, and as you know, the Ansible is like coming from this area. So, and the analysis of the users has shown that Ansible is getting, first of all, it is already on top, but it's getting even more popular. So you could see that from 2018 to 2019, based on the amount of the respondents, I mean, the general percentage, there are more people using the Ansible than it was previously. Generally, you could see that all the automation tools getting used more in 2019 than in 2018, which generally shows a trend. Everyone is going into automation, both vendors and customers, and obviously everything who is in between, I mean, system integrators, and so on and so forth. Now, the reason for that, I mean, there are multiple reasons for that. So one of the reasons, because the business is getting more and more, I mean, the IT business is getting more and more complicated, and it requires more and more changes to rapidly change things. And this is where all the configuration management tools are helping us. So they allows us to do this things quicker, and they allow us to do on the more predictable, with more predictable results. So despite all the tools are growing, and probably you see the Terraform is the fastest grower, the Ansible is retaining yet the lead. Probably the end of 2020 something could change, general from the configuration management perspective, but we'll speak about it also further in a couple of minutes. So Ansible is the most popular one. So why Ansible is so popular? There are multiple factors which are contributing to Ansible being so popular. First of all, over its history, Ansible has created or has retained or got from other developers really huge amount of the models. So more than 3,000, I think even probably more than close to 4,000 various models, which are used in various aspects of the IT management, applications, servers, clouds, network infrastructure, parts of the operating system. All of that is available in the Ansible. And that is why everyone could find something for him or for her that could help to automate or improve some activities. So the second point why Ansible is so popular is that Ansible is an open source. You could take a look in the code, you could take a look in what is going underneath. You understand there is no backdoors, you understand there is no Trojan. On the one hand. On the other hand, a lot of people who are contributing to it, not only the Red Hat, which is the owner of the Ansible, but also the much bigger community of the people who are leveraging the Ansible in their daily operation, and therefore creating something that others could reuse. The third thing, obviously being open source, Ansible as such is a core part, or what is also called Ansible engine. This is a free of charge thing. So it means no donation is needed. You download it, you take a look on the documentation, you start using, you're getting immediately the result. So very low entry threshold in the automation with Ansible. It's very simple comparing to the programming language, even comparing to the Python. That is why a lot of people find it's very handy tool to start doing automation. A lot of people even don't go further looking into the Python or anything else, because it is doing its job, it's doing the job great. Next thing is, as it is free, as people are using it, and as there is a lot of models, it's sort of like all the interdependent factory, but all that forms a very great and big community around Ansible. To be absolutely honest, whenever I was starting, or even right now, time to time, I'm facing some bugs, like something is not working. I'm trying to troubleshoot and trying to run the debugs. Sometimes it is helpful, sometimes it is not. And then what I do personally, I go to the GitHub or to the Stack Exchange and look, this is my error if somebody has had it already. Like in 95%, all the time, the questions that I was looking, they were already answered. So only 5% I have to raise a couple of cases, but so I did also something helpful for the community. But generally, it means that a lot of problems that might arise for you, they already, someone else has already faced them. And probably there was some discussions, might be some solution. So this is very important when you speak about the free tools. If there are not that many users, you wouldn't have the help. But if there are a lot of users, like millions of the users in the Ansible, then yes, you would. This point made Ansible so popular in the network automation world particularly. Ansible is agentless. So it interacts with destination host via the either SSH session or netconf session when we speak about the network automation, or RESTconf session. In certain cases, even could be JNMI. And it does not require anything to be installed on this destination host. That is super important when you speak about the network automation. Say you have a syscall, iOS, iOS XE, even iOS XR. You cannot install any third-party application on these devices. Same is applicable to Nokia. Same is applicable to Juniper. For Rest, it's a bit different. You could potentially install some application because under the hood, the Arista or like Cumulus Linux or Microsoft Azure Sonic is a Linux operating system, you could install something. But back in the days when the Ansible was starting, there was nothing yet as disaggregated networking, white boxes, and so on. And Ansible made a great reputation during these days where you had a closed vendor operating system, but you still could automate them and manage them because you don't need to install anything on the destination host. All the logic, all is done on your host, on your laptop or on your server where you have Ansible, and which is you are using to interact with the network elements. And last part about the Ansible popularity, it's all cool and great, but I'm pretty sure all of you are working for different companies. And depending on the company business model, it could be that company is very risk avoiding business model. So that's applicable for some like financial institute, that's applicable for service provider. Basically, the company doesn't want to risk, they cannot tolerate their downtimes, and they are willing to rely on the external services, predominantly on the vendors for support of their everything. In the context of Ansible being open source and free of charge, the big question mark could rise for the enterprises. So how could I use who could support for me the Ansible? The good thing is Ansible is a product of the Red Hat, and Red Hat provides paid support for the Ansible engine. So the core functionality, which is doing heavy lifting of the automation, and the tool called Ansible Tower, which sort of the orchestration of the Ansible. It could store various playbooks, credentials. It could create the role-based access to the playbook so that only people who are allowed to do the changes indeed could do these changes, and so on and so forth. So basically all the orchestration what the enterprises like so much. So it means basically Ansible is there for the community, free, and it is there for enterprises with a paid support that enterprises are willing and if willing to pay and have a requirements to have this support. So one of the questions that we also wanted briefly to highlight, because we were getting these questions quite a lot during our automation trainings that we are running already for a year. So Terraform, everyone is speaking Terraform. So for some people, even the option Terraform getting somehow equal things. So while we're speaking about the Ansible, and probably you have seen on the previous slides when we were showing the popularity, you could see, or you could have seen that Terraform is much more, the progression of the Terraform popularity is quicker, or higher than the Ansible. So the thing is, Terraform is a really great tool. It is embracing the approach called infrastructure as a service. Under the hood, what is happening in the Terraform? Um, you are creating some so-called intents. So the infrastructure, or you describe the resources which you are willing to have, and it relies internally on something called providers, which is basically doing heavy lifting, analyzing your input intent requirements, doing the necessary provisioning in the dedicated systems, and telling you back either everything is good or everything is bad, so something has failed and is doing the rollback. It's absolutely great tool when you're dealing with clouds and working with this cloud environments, or working with even local clouds environments based on Docker and so on. Terraform is really great. However, from the network automation perspective, Terraform is very, poor. It has support only of 7 vendors. All of them are more related to the, I wouldn't say cloud platform, but the, let's say, data center, because they support load balancers. They support, I think, 1 or 2 load balancers, also something a bit about the firewalls. And basically that is it. They're not touching the network, probably from the complication perspective, probably because it's just not their interest or focus for the Terraform. Whereas Ansible have support for more than 50 vendors. So all somehow popular vendors are already covered within the Ansible. From the models perspective, there is more than 1,000 models. Speaking about Ansible 2.9, which somehow mapped to these 50 vendors. You could think that probably it's like roughly 20 models per vendor. In fact, there is no like direct correlation. Some vendors have was just like 1 or 2 or 5 models, whereas some has about 50 or something like this. So from the network automation, Ansible beating Terraform. I don't know why that will happen in future. Probably Terraform will start focusing on the network part, probably not. The time will show, but definitely Ansible will stay in the network automation field in particular for quite a long time. So, okay, it's doing the job for the networks. What else Ansible could do for us? So the Ansible, as said, on the network piece is already dealing with all popular vendors: Cisco, Arista, Nokia, Cumulus, Palo Alto, Juniper, Huawei, FortiGate, what else we have? A10, F5. So everything more or less popular is already covered by the Ansible. However, as said earlier, the Ansible could do for us also end-to-end pipeline. It could manage the clouds for us if we would like to connect our network, let's say, with the clouds. So there are models to deal with Azure or AWS or Alibaba, Google Cloud Platform, DigitalOcean. There are some more, so this is just the most popular clouds, and therefore Ansible have models for them. Ansible could manage also on-prem infrastructure such as VMware or the OpenStack, virtualization even in the bare metal in form like KVM, management of your operating system, Linux, Windows, all sort of the Unix systems, managing the local Docker infrastructure. It also has models for managing the Kubernetes and so on. So, and the last part, which is also important when we speak about the automation of your system end-to-end, Ansible could also manage some applications. So there are models to manage the application, such as Netbox, for instance, one of the most popular tool for the data center networking. It has also opportunity to manage the other like Apache web servers on Nginx web servers, databases, MongoDB, Postgres, InfluxDB, the time series database used also quite often in the networking and for streaming telemetry, multiple other things, managing the Grafana, generally management of any applications through the REST API or the XML APIs. So all this Ansible could do. It means obviously it's changing the way how traditionally company are working, where we have the network guys, server guys, applications guys. This is something that all together now merged in the DevOps, and in big company also in like a bit separate structure, net DevOps, where you are using the same automation approach as traditional DevOps, but we focus on the networking. And this is where the Ansible is helping quite a bit. So now let's take a look what we was trying to discuss, right? So what is new in Ansible 10 and why it is so important? Despite you probably is thinking that, okay, it was, I was talking about some different things, not necessarily related to this topic, but all of them are because they would explain why the Ansible is changing. So Ansible in the version 2.9 has more than 3,000 models. So in some presentation, I have seen that with all the plugins, it is even closer to 4,500. I have not counted myself 4,500, but I definitely counted more than 3,000 models. So it means that all the models, when the new release is coming, the models theoretically should have been tested. Because if the model is not tested, it might be broken. So if some of you were working with the Ansible in the recent, let's say 1 or 2 years, so Ansible 2.8 and 2.9 specifically. So yeah, myself during various projects and during the trainings, what I have seen, starting from Ansible 2.i.5 or 2.8.5, I have a working netconf plugin. The netconf plugin was broken in 2.9. And 2.9.3, it was fixed, netconf plugin. Then in 2.9.7, it was broken again. Then it was fixed again in 2.9.10 or 11, something like this. So even the plugin that I could be using daily, it's not getting stable. Same thing I have seen across some other models, like when we are doing the upgrade from, let's say, 2.8 to 2.9, or even from 2.9 between different releases. There is no guarantee, unfortunately, that your playbooks that you have created will be working. It might be that something is changed in the model and the model is broken. Then another thing is, as is speaking about this so big amount of the products, not all the models in reality were created by the Ansible team themselves. So Ansible models, in many cases, if you take a look in the old documentation, telling you who is the author. And in some cases, speaking, for instance, about the Nokia models, they were created by the Nokia folks or with the support of the Nokia folks rather than only Ansible. Ansible has a so-called Ansible network team, which is supporting the network vendors and focusing on the development of the vendors' models. However, obviously, they're focusing on where the Ansible sees the biggest business, where they could probably benefit from the enterprise support, where the money is coming from. And that's why they're supporting Cisco, they're supporting Arista, they're supporting some other vendors, but it's not necessarily they're supporting else, probably because there is no that big like requirements or demand they see directly. This goes to the next point. So if the models are supported not by the Nokia themselves, not by the Ansible themselves, but by third parties, it will be a slower process of adding new features or the models update, just because it's Ansible jobs are so busy that they do not have time for that. So, and same for models, right? So if you have someone third party who has created the model, probably Ansible team would ask that to run all the tests and provide the evidence. They will run something else, but if some bugs has passed in the release, and Ansible is providing the paid release, it's getting more complicated. Who is in charge for this model? How the support model would be working? So all this lead to the idea, probably we need to rethink. I mean, probably Ansible or Red Hat need to rethink the way how they're doing stuff. So what they did since the version Ansible 2.10, they have split the Ansible core port. Now it's even being installed differently. We'll talk about it in a minute. So this core part, or Ansible engine, or it's also called Ansible base, it supports only the core functionality. It doesn't support any extra models. So they have defined a list of the models that they believe they would support as a core. All of the rest would be supported. It could be also supported to a degree by the Ansible team, but the releases and the life cycle of like all the extended functionality will be decoupled from the core. There are two reasons for that. The first one, just to be able to focus on the core and make it stable, probably make less changes in the core. Second, to allow quicker adaptation of the models. So if models are supported by a third party, or some models are really hot and there is a demand, and Ansible, Red Hat team would push the efforts to develop them, it's not necessary that the update needs to be done in the core part, and you need to like distribute the core part. It means that you could probably, if there is a way how to distribute the things, distribute these models separately, right? And this would allow to have a stable core for quite a while and changing it when it's really necessary in terms of performance or security or features, and to allow others stream to be driven and to work fine. So this is where they're starting getting into the approach. So if we wouldn't distribute anymore this extended functionality with the Ansible itself, so how will we distribute? If you were working with Ansible for quite a while previously, you know that Ansible has a concept of the roles. So roles is a way how the Ansible code should be structured. So it's explained, it has a certain folder structure, it has certain file structure, and if you follow this, it makes the code reusable, easy to understand, not only by you, by the broader community, because the broader community is generally understanding this thing. And this is also a perfect way to distribute the result of a job that someone has done, say roles for configuration the devices or pulling the data from certain devices, and applying it and distributing to the customer. So I know that some vendors also in the networking field, they are creating these roles, they provide various funny names, and then the customers could reuse these roles. Second piece is more complicated. It's called collections. So collection is, we could say about like extended role. So it's not accurate to say. So collections is a big distribution of the Ansible and Ansible related things. It would contain, it might contain the roles, basically. It could also contain some playbooks if they're not roles based, or even they are role based at some top level playbooks. They would also contain or may contain the plugins. So the plugins is a very important thing in this scenario, because Ansible itself has some built-in set of the plugins. Speaking about the network automation, Ansible has a SSH plugin, Ansible has a netconf plugin, and Ansible has a restconf plugin. It doesn't have JNMI plugin or gRPC plugin to interact with certain services. But we know that in the network automation field, JNMI, gRPC is the thing. It's getting more and more popular, and there are some collections that also already includes the Python plugin, because you see their plugins are Python, as Ansible is created in Python. So that there might be some extra communication things which are not existing in the standard Ansible distribution. So even new plugins, new interfaces could be covered within the collection. So it gives possibility to the, again, to the Red Hat team or to the others to develop the things on their own pace. So when then to take their collections, the Ansible created the idea, or Ansible team created the idea, there will be some collections that will be supported and distributed by the Red Hat team, so by Ansible team. And this is previously the models that were created by the Ansible team themselves. They will be converted in the form of the collections, but they are still supported by the Ansible. However, as said, so their lifecycle would be decoupled from the lifecycle of the Ansible engine. Second, there is a web resource called Galaxy, galaxy.ansible.com, where all the plugins, collections and the roles are living. They also can be living on the GitHub. There is no like problems with that. The Galaxy was just great for that. Like we have, if you have worked with a Docker Hub, docker.com, where we could upload our containers, or we're typically downloading the containers from images. I mean, same with the Galaxy. This is where the Ansible created a home for the collections, which are created by the third party or by Ansible team as well. So you just go into this web page, start looking for either name of the collection or name of the vendor, and you would get the results what is available there. You could download and start using. They typically come in with the documentation, and this is what Ansible encourages as it starts being more community driven, like the good projects in the Python world based on the PyPI or GitHub. If you don't have a README file, no one would understand and no one will use it. So that's why it's encouraged to have very good documentation that the people could benefit from. So what's changed else? As we have shifted from the one big Ansible 2.9.x towards 2.10, where there is a split between the core, I mean engine, and the documentation and the collections. The documentation has also significantly changed. So the first time when I saw that Ansible 2.10, I have sort of panic because I get to use to go to docsansible.com, open network model indexes, and I have all the models and I could start working. There is no this button anymore. If you go to docs.ansible.com, you will see completely different structure. So that's why we need to spend some time. So how it is structured right now, they have created general documentation. They have network automation dedicated block focusing around all the network automation, guiding you step by step what is there, how it is working. What is most important, it's already focusing on Ansible.10, 2.10. They really did a lot of job on modifying all the things on the 2.10. So, this documentation where we could also find the information about, okay, so we'll speak about in a minute, also about the installation of the Ansible, right? So all of us get to use to install Ansible. Well, I think all of us, might be different for you. Installing Ansible using, say, for the Linux apt get install Ansible, obviously modifying the keys, or sudo yum install or dnf install on the Red Hat or CentOS, and we're getting the things installed. The thing is, yet for the CentOS and Red Hat and all the stuff, through this distribution, Ansible 2.10 is not yet available. So, and it is even more. So if you have the Ansible 2.9 installed, you cannot install 2.10. It will tell you that there is a problem. So, in the CentOS 8, or I mean, it doesn't matter, in whatever CentOS or Red Hat, also in Ubuntu, I mean, in any system, you could install Ansible using the PIP. You know that Ansible is written in Python, and that is why you could install Ansible using the Python package index, what is PIP standing for. So in order to get that, you need first uninstall Ansible through your standard main. So you could see here the example from the CentOS 8, and then using the PIP, you'd install Ansible base. So pay attention that the name of the package is changing. It's not Ansible anymore. It is Ansible base. It's still important to say that Ansible as a package is still existing, because Ansible Red Hat does not want to lose the customers. And obviously, if they do just a radical shift, 2.9 you worked in one way, 2.10 you worked in the different way, and if playbook like start breaking, there will be a lot of problems for them with the support of the customer. So that is why Ansible is still coming in the 2.10. They still retain the old models and not supporting them. I mean, in terms of not developing them, but they are still existing. So that, I mean, your playbook could continue, but it also supports a new way of doing things. So you could think about Ansible 2.10 as a transitionary state. So because at the later stage, probably in 2.10, probably 2.11, they will drop the legacy approach, and you would have then to modify the things. So the important thing is, when you install the Ansible using the PIP, you would also need to manually install some additional models. For instance, when we speak about the network automation and managing the network elements using the SSH, so the Ansible relies on the Python library called Paramiko. And once you install Ansible using the apt-get or yum or DNF, the Paramiko is coming as an inherited part of the Ansible. It's coming all together. When you install Ansible or Ansible base using the PIP, Paramika is not installed by default. And if you install and if you start running the playbook that you had, you might get an error that playbook is not working. I mean, whatever the error message but generally it will tell you that model is missing. So just bear in mind, if you work with Ansible 2.10 and you install it using the PAP, you might need to install additional packages. So Paramika is one example. Another example is SSH Pass. So SSH Pass is a tool, Linux or Mac tool, which is used for dealing with the passports, and Ansible relies on this tool. So you need to have that installed. In Linux, it will be like sudo dnf install SSH Pass. In the Mac, whatever you're using, so Brew or Cask, you would need to install this again manually yourself. However, once you have this installed, you can then just run it in the same way as you was using previously, Ansible or Ansible playbook -- version, and will tell you what's it about. The good thing is, if you're a bit familiar with Python, you know that Python has a concept of the virtual environments. And this scenario, if you install the Ansible using PAP, you could install it solely for the virtual environment. So you could have multiple virtual environments with different Ansible versions if you'd like to play around about this. But just important with that, though, you should have not the generic Ansible installed. You might have one virtual environment with 2.9, another virtual environment with 2.10, and so on and so forth. So from the models perspective, as I said earlier, you don't have any more model index, but now you start having the collection index. So the collection index, this is previously what we have had from the models. This is collections which are supported by the Ansible team itself. So you might see from this scenario, so you see the AWS, you would see the Arista, you would see the Azure, you would see the Cisco, multiple different collections. So this is where the Ansible network team or other teams are working. You might find them also in the Galaxy, but besides the Galaxy, you would also find them on this web page. Just let me jump to this page just to show it briefly to you. So once we go to the page with the collection set, you will find it on the left-hand side called collection index. And you would go inside, say, let's go for the Arista EOS. You would see that generally the structure is similar to what we have previously in the playbooks, in the models. But it is just a bit like recap that we have our configuration plugin, so which is used. We have the name, the plugins which we are going to use to communicate with network elements, type of the API, and so on and so forth. So once we go to any of these modules, let's say we are going to the EOS config, we are getting to the documentation. It's telling how to install this collection if it is missing. Then once this collection is available, you could specify in the playbook how you call it. And this is generally the same documentation as we have previously. However, in the examples, you would see that now we're calling the playbacks very differently. Sorry, not the playbacks, the tasks internally. We start calling them as a name of collection. So it's namespace where the certain task is living dot name of the model. But this is how the renaming is started being working. And the interesting thing, this would be working for all the vendors. Let me jump briefly back and I will show you. There are some other models like Ansible built-in or Ansible net common. Let's go for the Ansible built-in, for instance. So what you would see here, this is various plugins like become plugins, connection plugins, callback, inventory, and so on. So there are a lot of plugins or models that we were using previously, but now they will be called using the full namespace. So the namespace is for this model is Ansible.built-in. Like one of the most popular commands whenever you're troubleshooting something is debug, right? So if you go internally, we will see that this is Ansible based, so it will be included in all the installation. This is part of the core models that will be supported all the time. So you don't need to install this collection per ECE. And it gives you the example how you could call. This is not yet modified, so they still showing their old way. So debug without the namespace because it is working in 2.10. However, we could call it using the proper name, and it is working as well, pretty much like the legacy set. So this is how the documentation is changing. So be aware that you need to look now for collection indexes. So same is applicable to the operating systems. So whenever we are creating our host files, we typically, if we use more advanced plugin like network CLI or netconf, we need to specify the type of the operating system. So previously, we was calling the devices using only a single name. For example, for Arista, it was EOS. For Cisco SA, it was ASA. For Cisco iOS, it was IS. For iOS XR, it was EOS XR, and so on and so forth. You might think that there is a cross left to the name of the operating system. This mark means it's not like the system is dead. It just means that this is supported by the network team from the Ansible themselves. It means that the collections and the support of the operating system within the Ansible is done by the Red Hat themselves. So Arista, Cisco, and you see other. They also have support for, as far as I remember, for Juniper, there is something else, but not all of the operating systems are supported by the Ansible or Red Hat. Some of them will be supported by their vendors, and that is one of the reasons why they are decoupling the things. So the full list, as you have seen, we have provided the links for you. You could go and just check how the things might look like for your playbook to change. Some of the information is available in the built-in documentation. So if you have it previously, I mean, you know how to use it. If not, it is quite handy to use in 2.10. For instance, information about the connectivity plugins. We have the general tool for documentation, Ansible-doc. Then we need to call, then just use help. So this help will show you what you could call, which are the models. It tells you what are the details, and then you could start looking for the details. So this specific command tells which connectivity plugins are available. You remember previously in the playbook typically was calling as a network CLI or the netconf or HTTP API. Now we provide the full name of the namespace of this collection, Ansible.net command, and then the model. Again, where this Ansible.net command you could get from. If you go back to the documentation, you will see that there is a collection called Ansible.net command. And once you go inside, you will see the connectivity plugins, module plugins, and netconf plugins. So everything is now a bit restructured, but once you start understanding that now you all the time should call the namespace and search for the namespace of the collection either in the docs Ansible.com in the collection index or in the Galaxy. So this was quick overview what is changing. So changing in nutshell a lot for a purpose. Again, to recap, the purpose is to split all the functionality, extending functionality from the core one and allow the core to focus only on doing some important things from the Ansible related to network automation or IT or anything else, just the core that will be doing for you the job. And the functionality SAM is distributed predominantly into the collections, which could be reused when it is necessary. So looking into the particular steps, we understand we need to add the namespaces and probably understand where we could look it into. Let's take a look on the example of very simple playbook. So this is a playbook to work with Ansible 2.9, and this playbook is allowing us to collect some information and just to validate the information. Pretty simple. That's, I think, how all of us are starting doing certain automation. We can collect, we could connect to the network element, we could grab some information, visualize whether it is there, what is the format. So first thing first, we just need to validate whether it is working in 2.9 or, sorry, the playbook from 2.9, whether it's working 2.10 or not, right? So what we do, we run the playbook and we figure out that it is working, which is good. So it means that there is no immediate need to start changing your playbooks from 2.9 to 2.10. So the tasks are still okay. The task is still showing us the output of the command, so meaning this sync is working correctly. Okay, good start, but let's take a look how we would like probably to modify it to looking forward. So the name of the operating system is changing. It will now include also the namespace of the collection. So the namespace of the collection is provided on the either Ansible.com collection index or Galaxy. We'll see that the collection is called arista.eos. So EOS would be general name of the operating system, how it has. It will also be provided on this list that I was showing to you guys previously, where all the new names of the operating system are provided. So the first thing when we start modifying our playbook, we probably will start with the inventory. Doesn't matter whether it's inventory created in the YAML format or whether this is inventory created in the INI format. We just need to make sure that the parameter Ansible Network OS now is called in the new namespace. The second thing, we need to figure out which collections we need to work. So some collections will be Ansible native and we don't need to call them in the playbooks. Some collections we may need to install and we will have to call them using the specific syntax. And afterwards, we would be like all the time working with this collection. So say we would like to work yet with Arista, we know that we would like to work with the collection index and arista.eos. So, okay, how to validate which collections we have? So all the collections which you have are located by default in the folder your home directory.ansible. So it is hidden directory /connections /ansible collections. It will show all the collections that are available, which might be either Ansible default. It could be vendor related if you are installing them from various, from the Galaxy, for instance. And within this folder, you'll be able to see also the documentation. So I'll show you in a while how these things would be looking like. And after that, but it doesn't, so this is where the collections are living. In order to install the new collection, you don't need to copy anything manually. You're using the specific knob from the Ansible called Ansible-Galaxy. So using help, you would figure out what are the details. So generally, it tells what are you going to install, whether it is collection or whether it is role. Then you type the keyword install or delete or whatever operation you are going to do with the collection, and then you provide the name. It will take a look. If the collection is already installed, it will do nothing. If it is not installed, it will install it. So if you have already collection installed and you would like to update it, take a look in the Ansible documentation. You just need to run this command with force existing, something like this. I don't remember exactly, but it basically will re-update the collection content if it has changed. Because by default, if you don't provide the flags, it would not do anything. So once this collection is installed, you could start working with that. Now, important thing is that some collections, especially those which are supported by the Ansible themselves, which you could find on the web page docs.ansible.com collection index, you don't need to import those collections. You just provide the proper namespaces like ansible.netcommon.network CLI. So this is a namespace for Ansible network connectivity collections instead of having just network CLI. So for Arista, in order to collect the information, we previously used EOS command. So now it will be called arista.eos command. So as you see, the name of the model generally retains what is added in the name of the namespace. Even for their basic task, as I said, so they have not updated documentation yet, but the proper way of calling things now is Ansible.built-in, because the debug model is living in this collection, and this is how you are calling then the standard Ansible task. So you see something started with the Ansible, that's generally what will all the time be distributed with part of the core. This is just how they are doing the things. Everything starting with a vendor name. At this stage, it might be yet distributed with part of the Ansible, might be not. For some vendors, it is not, and in future, it will be completely decoupled. So Ansible, I mean, Red Hat is yet balancing. So the things that what I heard that they will still trying to retain the core collection somehow distributed with the package itself. So sort of, as they call it, battery in distribution, where like you build in the toy, the battery is also internally, right? So this is also would be the thing that you would have Ansible base, the core engine, with some level of their collection, so that you could start doing the things immediately without relying on the installing of something else. And once all the modifications done, you could run the playbook. So one of the part of the playbook, what we was having the name of the operating system. You see it has changed now. The result of the application generally has not changed, besides one fact. Now we also have for the debug task the key changed false, what was not previously the case. Either it is back, or otherwise it is intended to have the things. So let's take a look at these playbooks. So I have them ready for you. First, let's take a look into their host files. So this is host files is in the state of the 2.9. So we have the IP addresses which we are using to connect to the network elements. We have in the usernames which we are again using to connect to the network element, and network operating system type. So we have it for the Arista, we have it for the Nokia here. Let's take a look now on the legacy playbook. So the playbook, as you see, this is a playbook I was just showing you on this slide. So we have the name 2.9, we use the network CLI plugin, we are having the name of the task, and we are using the legacy structure EOS command with all the parameters, and we are running the debug. So if I would run this playbook now, so first of all, the Ansible version, right? So Ansible playbook, or Ansible itself. So you would see that I have a version of 2.10.3, so it's probably the latest that's available right now. And I would run this playbook. So with these host files, which we were just looking into, so I'll probably open it as well. So Ansible playbook, legacy Arista, and we are pointing the inventory file to 2.9. So it starts doing the collection. So it's connecting over the CLI. So task is okay. Then it is rendering for us information. So nothing super fancy, but you see that in 2.10, the legacy syntax, the syntax that you have in pre.2.10 is yet working. It's yet working if you have installed using the PAP install Ansible database and Ansible, because Ansible database wouldn't contain any even legacy plugins. Ansible itself would. They even though have still now different versions. Ansible database has a version 2.10.3, Ansible .10, and Ansible, the plugin has 2.10.1. So even they're not aligned anymore. So, okay, let's take a look in the updated files. So I have 2.10. So let me open them like this. So you could see that now we have a different name of the operating system. So for Arista, it is coming from this table. From the Nokia, it's coming from the Nokia collection. I will show you like Nokia collection in a bit once we just complete with the demo or the Arista. So the name is changed. If we would take a look now, so let me bring this back. If we take a look now to the Arista playbook, so you would see that they are exactly changed with this all names of their plugins. So we have connection, network CLI, now we have Ansible.NET Common Network CLI. So for models, we have EOS command, now we have arista.eos.command. For the even built-in things, we have a debug, and now we have Ansible.built-in.debug. So you see that we are adding all the way the additional namespaces, which are missing. Basically, they were never needed in the version up to 2.10. And now if we would run then the playbook Ansible dot the new Arista inventory host 2.10, you would see that the playbook is still working. It's taking same time to work, but what is important, in the 2.10 you could use both syntax and you'd start getting the information. So in future, the legacy system would be deprecated. It would not be deprecated immediately, but it would be deprecated at some point. So, and this is how the things is looking into 2.10. So one of the important things, as I said, so we are using this playbook, for instance, not the playbook, the collection Arista EOS, right? So as I said, the collections are living in the Ansible collection. However, you see this collection Ansible.eos, it is not installed. The reason why it is not installed, because it is still yet coming as a part of the standard distribution. So I could install it, but it will be used still in the same scenario. So, but you see, I have the installed one from the Nokia. If I would go into the Nokia folder, it tells that is the vendor, that is the name of collection, and what is the file I have internally, license, manifest. What is important, there is a README file. So if we would take a look on that README file, so I get in quite a long list of in the markdown format that is describing so what this is plugin is, how it is doing. So this is how looks the proper third-party collection. So it is not supported by the Ansible by Red Hat team. It's created by the Nokia. It's supported by the Nokia. Nokia driven it for their customers. So it's explained all the details. So the reason why I'm showing you this file, this is important to understand that the collection they are distributing right now with this information. And you have this information that you could look into and get information how you could create your playbooks. So if you go to the Galaxy now, galaxy.ansible.com, and we search here for Nokia, you would see that we are getting this collection, and we go into the README documentation. That would be exactly the same page that we are saying in the CLI. So basically, that's how this things is working. The documentation already structured in the docs. Once we are doing this clone, installation of the collection, it will pull all the information from what you could find on the Galaxy page, download it, and you will have it all the time available offline when you are working with your network elements. So this is how the change in Ansible 2.10. This is the first thing. So obviously there will be introducing additional step that might be deviating time to time, and that would start forcing more relying on the external collection. However, at this stage, it is still okay to rely on the older syntax. So in the end of our presentation, we'd like to discuss one more things, right? So you have seen that probably if you need to modify all your playbooks, you need to change the names. It could be quite a lot. Once you start to understand the logic, how the namespace now, how the models are now split against various collections, you get to used to it. But if you get to used for previous 5 years working within the namespace, it could be a bit painful. So the thing is, I don't have an image. Okay. So here should be some image. For whatever reason, it's not saved. Sorry about that. But the idea is that it is not mandatory to change your playbooks right now. But it is important to start learning this syntax. It will take a while to understand it. The thing is, what we have shown is just a visible part of the iceberg. There are some things where, like Jinja filters, some of them has changed the name, some of them has not. One of the most important filters, like IP address, it's now called differently. It's now part of the Ansible Net Common, and the syntax is changed. Whereas some Jinja native filters, they're Jinja, not Ansible related, they are not. So there are a lot of changes that are coming. You can carry on with how you are doing things right now, but take your time now to prepare. Then once the old syntax is deprecated, you have the proper playbooks. It's pretty much like going from, I don't know, IPv4 to IPv6, from Python 2.7 to 3. Something. A just inherited step. And if you start thinking about, yes, it's creating a lot of disruption now, but in long term, it is win-win both for the Ansible to make the product more stable and less frequent bugs in the models we are using, and for the customers because they could benefit from the stability on the one hand and from the quicker updates from all the external models that just rely on the core ones. We have touched some of the things, so collections, roles probably something familiar, collection not necessary. So the Ansible is also as such with a lot of additional things in multiple cases easy, in multiple not very easy, especially when you start creating more complicated scenarios with nonlinear logic. And looking further, we was talking about the various use cases such as collection information or pushing the information up, or the fact-based automation. So all these things are possible with Ansible. They require proper understanding of the Ansible mechanics internally and the Ansible details from the models perspective and code flow control. So there are a lot of other things that Ansible could have. And we are welcoming you to our trainings, either in self-paced format where you could start anytime, on the live that we are starting just right after the new year, where you could learn a lot of things about Ansible. And not only, we are covering in the multi-vendor format various vendors, we are covering various platforms, we are covering all possible data formats starting from the XML up to protobuf and all the protocols. So basically anything that existing now in the automation world, we provide in this training. So this is a single training we could have this holistic approach. So thank you very much for your attention. Do you have any questions at this stage?
Thanks, Anton. It was a great presentation. So
thank you very much.
I'm thinking about, yes, I have to upgrade all the playbooks. Is there a tool which will automatically append the prefixes on the legacy ones?
I would assume Ansible would come with something. I haven't seen yet such a tool, but I think it might be something they will be willing to do because, as you say, you will have to upgrade the playbooks. I think there will be something. I haven't seen though yet. but I think they definitely will create something.
Okay.
Yeah, anyway,
Great.
it just started. I think 2.10 release was August this year, so it's not super popular, but I think there was an Ansible Fest just 2 weeks ago, probably, or 3 weeks ago, and all the playbooks, all the demos that was provided, they obviously they will be in 2.10 format. So Ansible will push in a lot for this. So it's a good starting things to looking into. This presentation will be available as a recording, and the slide deck will be available as well. So if you need anything, we'll distribute it to you folks. And yeah, thank you very much for attending us, and hope to see you in either our training or our new webinars. Take care and stay safe. Thank you, guys.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.